Episode 3 or Chapter 19 of The Mandalorian is here, and many fans have very different reactions to this episode, so we're going to break it all down. Of course, spoiler alert. What's up guys, it's Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars, and today we're breaking down episode 3 of The Mandalorian season 3. As always, don't forget to rank this episode out of 10 in the comments section below. Tell me what you thought about this episode as we break it down. And as always, I'll tell you guys what I rank this episode out of 10 after we break down the episode. So the episode opens with Din and Bo on Mandalore, right where we left off at the end of episode 2, in the mines of Mandalore, where Bo has just saved Din Djarin from drowning in the living waters underneath the mines of Mandalore, and she just came face to face with the freaking mythosaur. Din Djarin wakes up and Bo-Katan asks him if he saw anything down there. Din, of course, who was not awake at the time, says no, and Bo-Katan chooses to keep that whole mythosaur thing to herself, which clearly, like a lot of things in this episode, are foreshadowing towards things later down the line. And right before they leave the planet of Mandalore, Din Djarin grabs a sample of the living waters to prove to the armorer and the other Mandalorians that he is a Mandalorian again, and that Mandalore is not poisoned, and the mines and the living water itself still exist. But as they leave the planet and make their way back to Kalevala, they get interrupted by TIE interceptors. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the TIE interceptors, they're just TIE fighters, but better. Pretty much TIE Fighter 2.0. We get another awesome space fight scene with the TIE interceptors and Bo-Katan's ship as they make their way back to Kalevala so Din can jetpack down into his N1 starfighter and they can take out the TIE interceptors together. If there's one thing that the Mandalorian show is really good at, is giving us awesome ship fight scenes. Din and Bo take out the TIE interceptors one by one, and when they think that the threat is destroyed, out of nowhere these bombers start bombing Bo-Katan's castle. And this immediately makes Bo-Katan think back to the Night of 1,000 Tears when these bombers destroyed all of Mandalore. And Bo, of course, still being upset at the Empire for what they did to her homeworld, and now what they just did to her new home, starts to immediately go after the bombers. When Din Djarin sees on his radar that there are a ton of interceptors on their way. Now, before they jump into hyperspace to go see the armorer, Bo-Katan says that's a lot of ships for a warlord. Because the way we understand the Empire, or the remnant of the Empire at this time in the Star Wars galaxy, they are supposed to just be warlords looking over a handful of stormtroopers, not this huge fleet of TIE interceptors. So of course this will be brought up later in the season, who is in charge of all of these TIE interceptors. But then we go to Coruscant. And this is the first time we've actually seen Coruscant in a long time. And I know what you're saying, we just saw Coruscant a ton in the Andor show last year, and we even saw a little bit of it in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show last year, but let's be real, that did not feel like Coruscant at all. This episode of The Mandalorian felt like Coruscant. But we first see Dr. Pershing talking to a crowd of people, telling him how he is so thankful and honored that he has been allowed to be in this amnesty program. This is pretty much a program that the New Republic has put into place because not all people who worked for the Empire did it willingly, like Dr. Pershing. And they don't deserve to just be held in prison forever or deserve to be killed. They deserve amnesty. But Dr. Pershing is telling these people what he did for the Empire and how cloning could save so many people's lives. And when he was a kid, his mom died due to an organ failure that could have easily been fixed by just simple cloning. And after he finishes his speech and he is leaving the building, he is talking to somebody. And this happens many times throughout the episode, but Dr. Pershing is trying to tell this person something and it gets interrupted. Now, what Pershing says is very important, and he gets cut off almost immediately. But he says the first cast rejected the formula almost immediately. But, and then he gets cut off. So we can only speculate about what Dr. Pershing was going to say. Could he be referring to a cloned body that didn't reject this formula? possibly a version of Supreme Leader Snoke? I guess we'll just have to wait and see, because Dr. Pershing gets interrupted and starts talking to the higher class people of Coruscant. And one guy explains to Dr. Pershing that he almost got drafted, and his wife was like, no, honey, that was for the Empire. And what the man says is the Empire, Rebels, New Republic, it's all the same thing. And this is what Coruscant actually is. The upper class people who don't even know what's going on around the galaxy, all the horrors that are going on with the Empire and even the New Republic. Everyone on Coruscant seems to just be blind to all of it. But we then get to see Dr. Pershing being flown back to his amnesty housing, where we get some great looks at Coruscant. Coruscant was, of course, in the prequel trilogy, the capital of the Republic, and now the capital of the New Republic, but it's just cool to actually see Coruscant again. But when he gets to the amnesty housing, it looks a lot like the same houses that Serial Bar Srill's mom lived in the Andor show. But Pershing is stopped by some of the other members of the amnesty program, other Imperial officers that are now in rehab and trying to be better people for the New Republic. And one of those people Dr. Pershing recognizes. It's Elia Kane, who was an officer for Moff Gideon. And when Moff Gideon is brought up, one of the other officers says, I heard that he escaped the prison transport. Again, so much foreshadowing going on in this episode about what is to come in this third season of The Mandalorian, and Moff Gideon escaping prison is one of them. One of the officers then hands Dr. Pershing a drink, and they toast, saying, "Long live the New Republic." And again, even in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, you hear an Imperial officer say, "Long live the Empire," as he kills himself to not give up any information regarding the Empire. But the similarities between the Empire and the New Republic are insane. It's like they're the exact same thing, and that seems to be a problem. But the next day, we get to see what Dr. Pershing is doing. He is now working for the New Republic in a cubicle, which again makes us think of Serial Bar Srill from the Andor show. But he is transferring data of Imperial goods to the archives before these things get destroyed. Pershing is very confused by this, because why would all this good technology and equipment actually be destroyed when they could just be repurposed? Also, a quick little Easter egg, the guy who comes over to Dr. Pershing and hands him his work that he has to accomplish says, "Happy Bendu Day." And of course, for you Star Wars Rebels fans out there, I'm sure you didn't miss this nod to the Bendu from Star Wars Rebels. But later that night, Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane go out together, and they go to where you can see the only piece of Coruscant's planet that you can actually touch. It is the tallest mountain on Coruscant called Umate, and it is another Easter egg because this is also referred to in the High Republic novel Light of the Jedi. But Pershing tells Elia that he sometimes thinks that what he was doing should have been finished. All the cloning work that he was working on with the Empire should have been finished. But the ethics of cloning is complicated, and that is why the New Republic will never let him do it. But Elia, and again, let's point out the obvious, her name is Elia, and she is a liar. Liar! She says if it's important enough, it should be done. Following orders blindly is why they worked for the Empire in the first place. She goes as far as convincing Dr. Pershing to pursue this by going to get medical equipment that Dr. Pershing knows is there because he has been archiving this in his day job. So the next night they get on a train and go to get this lab equipment. But in the amnesty program, they actually can't leave this certain area on Coruscant, and they of course are leaving that area and don't have tickets on the train, which leads them to eventually jump off of the moving train, where we get to the scrapyard and get to see some Star Destroyers. They go into the Star Destroyers and get the medical equipment, but on their way out, they get caught by the New Republic. But Elia doesn't get arrested, just Dr. Pershing. Elia has set him up. And when Dr. Pershing wakes up, he is in a rehab facility where he's about to go into a mind flayer that has just been turned down a little bit. And when everybody leaves the room, Elia asks if she can stay because, of course, he's her good friend. She wants to make sure he's okay. They agree to let Elia stay in the room, and she turns the mind flayer up to the max. which again, we can only speculate, but we believe that this is going to wipe Dr. Pershing's mind. Then we end the episode with Din and Bo going to the armorer and the other Mandalorians and convincing them by giving them the water sample that they went to the living waters and that Din Djarin is a Mandalorian again. And with this information, the armorer turns to Bo-Katan and asks if she's taken off her helmet since she was in the living waters, and she of course says no, and now she is a member of the Creed.
This is the way.
So all in all, I thought this was a good episode. A lot of fans are crapping on it, how it was a filler episode, too much Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane on Coruscant, but honestly, I loved it. I don't think it was better than episode 2. I don't think it was better than episode 1. If I were to rank it out of 10, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10, but by no means was this a bad episode. The one character from season 1 and 2 that I thought should get more screen time is Dr. Pershing. And we still got an awesome fight scene in space and on Kalevala between TIE interceptors and Din and Bo. There was definitely no lack of action in this episode. I think a lot of people are just upset because The Mandalorian is only 8 episodes, and now one of them was almost purely focused on Dr. Pershing on Coruscant. But tell me what you thought about this episode in the comment section below. If you haven't yet, rank it out of 10. Smash like if you like this video, hit subscribe, and hit that bell so you get notified every time I post a video, and my pretty face will show up in the recommended feed of yours. So although this episode did not really stick with Din and Bo in the story between them and the Mythosaur and all that other crazy stuff, it did leave us with a lot of questions and stuff to speculate about, with Moff Gideon possibly escaping the prison. Who the heck was in charge of all of those TIE interceptors at the beginning of the episode? What's going to happen to Dr. Pershing? How does the New Republic not realize that having Imperial officers in an amnesty program is not going to end well? There's a lot to look forward to in the rest of the season because of episode 3. But if you want more breakdown videos like this, leaks or rumor videos, or you just want to come by some live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays, hit that subscribe and may the force be with you always.